Hi there everybody, I'm Nicola James, CEO of Lexxic and a psychologist. Today I'm very fortunate to be interviewing Katherine Rawlings. She is the leadership coach and disability ambassador at Coutts. Hi there Katherine.
Hi Nicola, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you explain a bit more about your role at Coutts?
Yeah, of course. So Coutts is a very diverse organisation, and for me, I was very passionate from a young age about developing people and fortunate enough to take a role as a leadership coach a number of years ago, where we were trained in terms of coaching from, end to end really, right from the very intern people all the way through to coaching the exco members. So that was a great experience, but actually doing that you realise that people are so very diverse. And lots of people that I came across had neurodiversity conditions, and I felt very passionate about trying to help those individuals that appeared to be overlooked by their line managers or ignored, or maybe just felt they were difficult characters because they couldn't perform in the standard or normal way as what people expected.
Okay, and I know that you talked to me quite a lot about your work with neurodiversity in Coutts, and I can imagine some of those skills you've just talked about where you support people with neurodiverse conditions. Can you explain a bit more about your involvement with that in Coutts?
Yeah, I think for me it was about how do we have that education. And as much as you can, I spend time, I've mentored lots of people in the organisation, it's trying to get it out as a wider message. So last year what we did was we did a campaign for the Neurodiversity Week in conjunction with yourselves, which was great to have that technical support as opposed to us from the individuals in the organisation that have lots of stories. So we did a big campaign in terms of a desk drop. We had a clinic every single day for that week. Great. We've got a big screen up in Garden Court in the Strand, and we had big messages up there. We even got stories out of our Coutts clients that were being dyslexic, the famous people over the years, and showcased those people.
Fabulous.
I think the most telling piece was the exercises we gave to people. So we invited people with neurodiverse conditions and also people without neurodiverse conditions. And actually the understanding of those people, especially line managers, the realisation of the struggles that those people go through, maybe even to read or write or get the spelling correct. And that was amazing. The feedback was fantastic, and even extended to clients' children, to grandchildren, to all sorts of people were benefited
brilliant.
from that.
And when I speak to you, I see a lot of passion behind the area, and it was really innovative, and the attendance at that event last year was brilliant. One thing you talked about is your clients, a lot of them having dyslexia. Can you explain about the entrepreneurs with dyslexia and your experience of that bank with you?
Yeah, I just think we have a huge amount of entrepreneurs within the organisation, and the people that we showcased last year were no longer with us. So they were, older generation, because obviously we can't promote our current clients in terms of their names. But it's very interesting to see that the amount of entrepreneurs that do have a neurodiversity condition, and it feels to me that they just have a greater level of tenacity and resilience, and maybe that's the struggles that they've had to overcome in their life, but they don't seem to give up. And I think the interesting thing is, one of the quotes that I used last year, it appears to be that if you fall over 9 times, you have to get up 10 times, and actually those people have done that. They've failed and they've managed to pick themselves up and start again, whereas I think lots of people in society these days don't pick themselves back up. They expect it to happen immediately, and if it doesn't happen immediately, they give up.
Yeah, and I noticed that one of the things that you see in studies is that there's lots of entrepreneurs that have dyslexia, and there's a tendency towards, I know with myself and entrepreneurs I've talked to with dyslexia, there's something about when you have something like dyslexia, you do learn to be resilient, but you also learn to almost problem solve or design yourself into a different way of learning to help you cope. And I know that's given me maybe more of an ideas brain, as I've seen with other dyslexic entrepreneurs, of looking for solutions or ways of doing things differently, which can be key to successful ideas in business. So I totally understand that. But when I talk to you, I just feel a very strong heart and a very strong empathy. And I know we've discussed this before around your personal experience around dyslexia. So can you share a bit more about your motivation behind that and your experience of dyslexia?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I try and strive to be the best at everything I can do. And it felt to me that my passion about helping people and my personal experience of trying to help and support my son meant that I'd done lots of research and felt that I was a little bit probably better informed than others to be able to help these people. So my son struggled all the way through school, and actually we didn't really know, you know, what the problem was with him. And actually we tried to get him extra help and extra lessons, all the things that actually when you know about dyslexia is the wrong thing to do, because we would get him an hour and a half extra lessons before school, which meant he was even more tired to try and get through school. So I think, you know, that was difficult for him. I felt for him because he was unable to cut his food up. So if he was invited to somebody's house after school, he was unable to cut his food up, he was unable to tie a shoelace, do a button up right correctly. And, you know, I tried to help him in the best possible way that I could, and we did get him assessed and we got him some help. But I think that just continued into when he left school and the government saying that everybody needs to leave school or leave education with the level C in maths and English. So I think he took it for the 8th time and gave up at that stage. Okay. You know, it was very a tormenting experience for him. And then he chose to actually leave home and run off, really. He got taken from our house and joined a completely different family in society that didn't believe in education, because he felt that that was the only way out for him. And he spent 22 months with this organisation. Luckily we do have him back now, but he almost felt that he needed to run away from society. And I sort of pride myself on being a supportive mother, but he didn't want the conventional learn to drive, tidy your room and clean your football boots, everything else that he needed to do. And actually I think the government's requirement of trying to get a C in maths and English meant that he did them 8 times and still failed. Yeah,
and it can be so demoralising when you try and you try again but you don't see success. And I remember feeling like that with some of my A-levels. You know, you try and try again, and it's like, I remember I was doing English Literature A-level and I dropped it because it was too much information to take in. I actually did an A-level in a year because there was less information to take in over a shorter period of time, and I got quite a good grade in that. But that, you know, that was me learning to try and do things differently. You know, and if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be a psychologist today, because I wouldn't have got the grades to get into uni. No. So it can be really like, you do have to sort of fight, and I feel for your son. And I know you were talking about colleagues that you've been working with and trying to work with their strengths, or maybe looking for roles that align with their strengths. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, which I think is really interesting, and my passion about trying to educate line managers. So recently I took over another division, and I was introduced to the 40 plus members of staff there, and actually I was really just told, well, that one's dyslexic and that one's dyslexic and that one's dyslexic. And I thought, okay, that's really interesting. So what are we doing about that? What support have we given them? Well, I didn't know there was any support available, which is interesting in terms of feedback to the campaign that we did last year. So I've spent some time with those individuals, and one particular lady has gone through the Lexxic assessment piece and has got a report, and I'm now working with her in terms of that report. But I think she was definitely in the wrong role. She had chosen to go into an area where it was very academic. You have to take lots of academic exams around law, and therefore she was struggling in that area, and other people felt that she wasn't doing a very good job. My thoughts were that she needed to be in an area which was much less theoretical and more practical in terms of, you know, simple tasks that can be done quickly, as opposed to reviewing a file that may be half a metre thick, trying to write a letter that was a couple of pages long with some technical detail in it. So, you know, I think people do end up in the wrong roles sometimes because they feel that that's where they should go, or they should strive to be in that area, or maybe it's a promotion that they take but not necessarily the right role for them. So it's really enlightening, and you can see when you give her tasks that she enjoys, she absolutely springs to life, and there's nobody better than her with her passion and her energy. You know, she's very passionate about charity, she's very passionate about animals, and you get her involved in that, and she can organise the way she articulates the emails even. It's incredibly impressive.
That's brilliant. And it's interesting how what we found is that we get some psychologists that we recruit with dyslexia, and you definitely find there are certain things that they can do really well. Like, you know, sometimes when they do the support training, they're so good at it because they've experienced it themselves. going to talk to clients. One lady works, she literally can just talk to people really easily and network really easily and problem solve really easily. And she knows all the solutions for the report because she can just put herself in that person's position. So it is quite interesting how one of the things I've learned is that I can find lots of gifts with people with dyslexia. Like we're recruiting more and more people with dyslexia, specifically certain roles, things like sales, things like training, things like coaching, things like BD, can actually be a strength in somebody's ability to critically think and go beyond. So it's interesting how we need all sorts of different people in order to make a really effective business. And I think that's what Richard Branson talks about as well. When he, he's dyslexic, and when he recruits people, he looks for people that are different from him, who can challenge him to make his business grow, because the more diversity you have, the more a business can grow. I know we were talking about line managers, and sometimes line managers don't know what to do or how to help a dyslexic employee. So if you were to advise a line manager or another organisation about how they might help someone with dyslexia or raising awareness of neurodiversity in the workplace, what tips would you give them?
I think it's not even limited to dyslexia, in my opinion. It's about being interested in the people that you're line managing.
Definitely.
And understanding what their challenges are. So if something that they're doing incorrectly all of the time, or they're taking a long time to do something, then it's spending that time to understand. Because I think there's aspects of everybody's job that we try and avoid because we don't enjoy. I know I've got those myself, Excel, PowerPoint, those sort of things I don't enjoy, and try and get out of them the best I possibly can. And therefore, it's just not a skill set of mine to be sat quietly putting data in or trying to do that sort of aspect. So is it something that they don't enjoy, or is it something that they are really struggling with? And to understand how to get that help. And actually the changes, if you make small changes to those people, it can really improve their ability, and therefore their confidence goes up, and they feel a real success of themselves, and actually other people in those teams benefit from that, as opposed to having that confidence knocked out of them because it's always that particular person that might get something wrong. But actually bring them out in the right role, give them the right skills. But I think it's just so important to understand, especially in our organisation, there is so much support available with yourselves in terms of that assessment, and then understanding how those changes can be made. But there's some incredible elements of passion and enthusiasm, and just as you say, they think differently. And in particular, this one lady said to me, well, I always check this, Catherine, I never even thought about it. But actually, she's checking the fail-safe piece to manage the risk because she thinks differently to me. I would have just assumed that was going to happen, but no, she wants to check that and make sure it's going to take place. So definitely need all sorts of abilities really, but we need to harness and we need to praise them and bring out the best aspects of their ability, not try and pigeonhole them that they can't do some of the standard office, I guess, functions. Definitely. As well as some other people.
I definitely find that with my dyslexic brain, I do know that sometimes the way I can go into the clouds and ideas, I find people that are very good at attention to detail may find that harder. But together when you sit in a room, you can be really creative with what you produce because you both have different brains and different ways of looking at things. I know you were talking about what you're doing for Dyslexia Awareness Week this year. So just to give some organisations maybe some ideas of what they would do, what sort of things are you thinking of doing this year? I know last year you were very creative with, offering people different dyslexic exercises and all that type of stuff. What things are you thinking of doing this year?
So I think I want to make sure that we can hit all of the regional offices. So it's very London-centric last time, and I think, we've got some feedback that we did miss the regional offices. So it's about inclusivity really, and making sure everybody has that opportunity. For me, the feedback and what I've experienced is it is the best learning exercise to have a go. So we had the letters and the words were different. Then we had some Greek letters for the people to follow, and so well, that's actually how dyslexic people seem to have to form their letters sometimes. So I think if you put yourself into their shoes and live a few minutes in the lives that some of these people have to deal with day in, day out, that's the best takeaway, and make sure that actually it's clear and easy for everybody to be able to access this, and just encourage more people to come forward and have some assessments to see what is available to help them.
Definitely.
And I think we are doing more and more within the organisation across all sorts of disabilities, and people are starting to talk and just come forward. So
that's great.
That's great. We just need to harness that, and what I'd like to do is then get people's permission to showcase those experiences and share with people, because I think other people will buy in then if they can see that people have been through that process, come out the other end and actually are enjoying their time at work much more effectively and efficiently, and just getting far more enjoyment out of it.
Definitely. And I think I just want to take this point to say, when I first met you, it really struck me with how much you help people, and you just help so many people in so many different ways. And we sat in the lobby of Coutts and we just chatted for ages. And I just think I'd say a big thank you. You do so much for other people and you're so humble, and it's just amazing how you change people's lives. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.